Today's topic, rescue your old 401k plan. There were some pretty significant updates that occurred at the start of this year. Recording this video in 2024, so this was a January 1, 2024 update provided by the Secure Act 2.0, and it can have substantial effects on some of your older 401k plans. Hence the title, Rescue Your 401k Plan. So in today's video, I want to walk through why the change, why is this a problem, and what can you do to rescue that old 401k plan? Because we're not going to leave them abandoned. We're going to save them. No man or woman left behind. That's the goal today in today's 401k saving mission. So stay tuned. That's all coming up next. Okay, so why now? Why are we rescuing old 401k plans? Well, in defense of the why now, technically this has been around since 2001. So 2001. Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? But from that period up until this year, really your plan provider could move money from a 401k plan to an IRA. So you leave your employer and you left behind $2,000. They can force that money over to an IRA for you. We're going to get into all that as we kind of move through the video. But what's the big update that occurred earlier this year? Well, from years past, it was anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000. They have since increased that to 7,000. And you might be sitting there thinking, Chad, it's only 2,000 buckaroos. Can't be that big of a difference. Contraire, my friend. And I do got to peek over here because there's only so many numbers that I can remember. But right now, that small $2,000 increase, they believe will expose 800,000 new participants. So that means there's 800,000 new 401k plans for participants that are going to get forced or could be forced into an IRA. Now, what you're thinking is, well, if there's smaller balances, it can't be that much. Well, no, that could be as high as $1.5 trillion. Not to mention, there's $1.65 trillion of unclaimed old 401k plans. This is why when we take on a new client, we always call it spring cleaning. We go and get all their older 401k plans, get them cleaned up so that these nightmares don't happen. No matter the amount, right? You saved it. It was your money. You worked your butt off. And hopefully you have a little bit of employer money in there too. Don't leave that behind. So take all that with you. So the reason why we're rescuing our old 401k plans, I could have made this case since day one, since I started doing this, but because it's now increased to $7,000, it opens up a lot of individuals. And if you are a viewer of the Wealth Kill channel here, we usually are working with high income professionals, physicians in particular, where we do something called Backdoor Roth IRAs. What can blow up a Backdoor Roth IRA? Oh wait, that's right. An IRA balance. So could you imagine you had an IRA that was forced upon you that maybe you forgot about, or they don't have the proper address because, well, you didn't update your address in the first place after you left that employer 4 years ago. They now roll it into an IRA. You've been doing Backdoor Roth IRAs like clockwork the past few years thinking, I got this. I followed all of Chad's YouTube videos. I knew what I'm doing. Wrong. You had this sneaky little IRA balance from that old 401k plan. You should have just got cleaned up in the first place. So part one of this video, the why now, that's why we're talking about it now. It just 800,000 people are going to now have this new IRA forced upon them. So that is why we are on the rescue mission. Part one, why now? It's really from Secure Act 2.0, increasing that from 5,000 up to 7,000. So why is this a problem? You're probably thinking, all right, I get an IRA out of it. What could be so terrible about that? Well, go back to the last part, right? High income professional, you're doing Backdoor Roth IRAs. This sneaky little new IRA balance could have just introduced the pro rata rule and blew up a lot of great years of perfectly timed Backdoor Roth IRAs. That's problem one from my side of it. Well, what's the other problem? Well, the plan sponsor, the plan provider is still the fiduciary here. So they have to act in a prudent way. Well, the only way that they can not get themselves in trouble is to keep it pretty conservative. So what happens is they're going to move it out of your 401k, move it into an IRA plan. More than likely, they're just going to park it in cash or a money market fund. So yeah, now rates aren't too bad, but it depends, right? Some money market funds are higher at 5, but some are still down at 2 and 1. So it depends. But IRAs likely are going to also have fees on them. So you already had this smaller IRA balance earning a little bit of interest off, hopefully some form of interest from that money market fund, but there's also fees on the account. So if you forgot about this thing for many years, many decades, you might not have anything more. If anything, you can have even a lower lower amount, depending on what the fees are compared to the actual interest on the account, because a lot of the fees are based on flat fees, right? You know, they might say $100 per year to have the account open, but if you only had a $7,000 balance earning 2%, you know, that could not work out in your favor very well in the long run. So that's part one, is that's a problem, right? You had this money that's invested. In this example, right, we don't know what it was in your 401k. Hopefully you had it invested. At worst case scenario, it was probably in a target date fund, but now it's moving over to cash. So that could be a serious issue where you're not getting any return. If not, you could actually be depleting the account balance because of the fees on that account. And the other part of this is usually, right, I can't say all the time, but usually we're more concerned about younger workers, right? Younger workers are the ones, my generation, Gen Z, not even younger Gen X, maybe jumped around employers a little bit more often than like I always joke, like our parents were like, I worked at the same factory for 40 years. Grandpa worked at the same factory for 35 years before that, right? They may have been the same employer for a lot longer than more recent generations will describe it as that. So what's the point there? Well, that's the generation that should likely be invested even more aggressively, right? We have time on our side, but all of a sudden you're just sitting in cash. So that's also not good. And here's the other one I didn't mention in there. So while we're talking about moving it over to an IRA, the other clause inside of this rule is balances under $1,000, your 401k provider could just send you a check. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, send me a check. I love checks. Contraire, my friend. Here's why. If you're not over 59 and a half, 10% penalty. Guess what else? Ordinary income tax. All of a sudden, we just lost like a third of our money because we just weren't prudent to move the money somewhere efficiently. And don't worry, I'm going to cover that next. But still, here's an example where there's not really a good outcome in there, right? Now, if it's over 7,000, they can't do anything. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes we'll actually tell our clients like, hey, let's just keep it in that same 401k plan. Let's update your investment options, kind of review everything you have going on. That could be an option for sure. But under 7,000, certainly under 1,000, you need to go on a rescue mission, right? You need to get out there to find that 401k, get it to the proper place, and make sure you're not getting hurt by any of these new rules that kicked in on January 1. And if you're wondering why your 401k provider would do this to you, in defense of 401ks, they're expensive, right? They're expensive to set those up. There's maintenance fees that come with having participants on there. So that's why this rule's in place. Not that I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but as someone that sets up 401k plans for small businesses, it can become a little bit of a task in there. So that's why they increased it, and they're trying to get more and more of these accounts cleaned up because it helps some of those other employers. Okay, what do? You go on this rescue mission, and now you have to save a 401k plan. You have three options. All right. Option number one, you actually roll it over to an IRA. Now, I keep going back to this, but if you're a high income professional and you are doing backdoor Roth IRAs, you likely do not love this option. It's going to ruin your backdoor Roths going forward because of something called the pro rata rule. Now, discuss this with your financial advisor, your tax accountant. Depending on the balance, you might make a case that you might end up converting it to a Roth regardless. Now, that has its own taxes to it, right? When you convert money from an IRA to a Roth IRA, the taxable event, assuming that it wasn't a backdoor Roth IRA in the first place. But your first option may be actually rolling it to an IRA. Now, always be aware of this, right? Because sometimes this option is overhyped from other financial advisors that may be trying to move assets over because they bill on assets, or what we call assets under management, or an AUM fee. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I always say this in my videos. I don't care what fee you use, just make sure your clients know what they're paying. But just keep an eye on that, be aware of that. And again, if you're going back to Roth IRAs, this is probably not number one. So second option now, where are you for your current employment, right? Do they have a 401k plan? Well, if they have a 401k plan, this is one of our favorite options, and it's a good 401k plan, low cost, good investment options. You can take that money and roll it right into your new 401k plan. So you take it from the old plan, rescue mission, we get it over to the new plan. That's your second option. Assuming your balance was lower than $7,000, I would say there's probably not too much research you want to do there. But if your new 401k plan is not a good 401k plan, there's higher fees in there, you don't have good investment options, there's probably some math to be on. Can you keep it at the old 401k plan? Should it be in an IRA? But that's a little bit harder without having actual numbers to work with. But your second option surely is going to be moving it to a new 401k plan. And your third option would be that you could actually take the funds out. Now that's one where I don't love it, right? Depending on the balance. If you're under age 59 and a half, right, you have taxes, you have penalties, but it's one that should be stated, right? You do have that option where you can withdraw withdraw the money. In a perfect world, one of two things are occurring there. You're either going to move it to an IRA or to your current 401k plan. Now, the other one in there, so I guess there's actually more than, what did I say, 3? There's technically 4. I couldn't even make a case there's going to be 5. Number 4 would be, right, if we're over 7,000, those rules don't apply. Now, keep an eye on the balance, right? If it's invested in the stock market goes up, it goes down. And you're not making new contributions to it because it's an old 401k plan. So keep that in mind. But if it's over 7,000, or let's just say well over 7,000, and it's a good 401k plan, costs are low, investment options are beautiful, you can also keep it there. There's not any rule that says that you have to move it. Now, I'm a man of simplicity. If I have a good 401k plan at my current employer, I usually try to get them consolidated into the new plan because it just keeps it organized. You don't forget about that old plan from 12 years ago and 3 employers ago. It just keeps it more organized. And then last but not least, under that 1,000, don't forget, so this is why I say there's 5 options. Under 1,000, this is one that you probably really want to check on sooner than later because you don't really want it to get sent to you and you got a 10% early withdrawal penalty and you pay taxes on it. But the same rules would apply there. Even under $1,000, if you get to it before they send the money out, you can roll that over into your new 401k plan. You can roll it into an IRA. You could technically take the withdrawal, but again, under 59.5, just remember 10% penalty. And no matter where you pull it out, if this is, I guess in all these scenarios, I'm assuming like a pre-tax 401k plan, not a Roth 401k, but just remember ordinary income tax. So keep an eye on that. So you have plenty of options with it. With your rescue mission, the goal is just don't forget about these old 401k plans. Don't allow them to sit there and you forget about them and they're not getting any benefit because you worked hard. You put money away. You did everything right. And hopefully you got some employer match in there. Don't leave that behind. So for our rescue mission in general, just don't forget about that old 401k plan. And there you have it. The rescue mission of the old 401k plan, or 401k plans plural. If you have more than one, you got some spring cleaning to do. And I should also note, getting this all organized is not difficult. Usually you're getting a form from your current plan, getting a form from your old plan, filling them out, submitting them, and it'll get moved over. I sometimes call it adult babysitting. Sometimes you got to make sure it actually gets there and everything's done properly. But for the most part, this is not difficult. I realize I didn't note that throughout the video, but pretty easy process. But rescue that old 401k plan. I wanted to add context to why this is a little bit more popular. We've seen a lot more articles out there on, saving that old 401k plan, why it's important, and then also what are your options. So as always, thanks for hanging out with me for the last 15 minutes or so. Take some time, rescue that old 401k plan. As always, thanks for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, subscribe here, click on the little bell icon. You also get a notification every time we release a new video. Again, coming at you weekly. And please drop us a comment. What did you like about this video? What did you hate about this video? What can I add more content in terms of what topics do you want to see? What questions do you have? I'm here for you. So drop some comments below. Again, thanks for hanging out with me. As always, I'll catch you on the next video.